Good morning. Welcome to WellSprings. Whether you are in Bell Hall right now in Chester Springs or whether you are joining us online. For those I might not have met yet, my name is Teresa, my pronouns are she and her, and I want to welcome you here. We always start here at WellSprings with singing, so please rise, whether in body or in spirit, and join us on our first song. Take a seat. If you happen to know this song, please do sing along with us. When I was a boy each week, Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now.
Sunday school, we will learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick. Is it anything is healed at all? So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, I barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then, 'cause everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
All right, please rise, whether in body or in spirit. Tambourine's out soon. You know what's happening next.
We got a rock band today, folks.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, to write yourself up yet? It's only in your head you feel left out or looked down on. Just try your best. Try everything you can. Don't you worry what they tell themselves when you're away. Oh! It just takes some time, little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. Hey, you know they're all the same. You know you're doing that wandering road, so don't buy in. Live right now, just be yourself. It doesn't matter if it's good enough for someone else.
It just takes some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. It just takes some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright.
Angie, go!
Hey, don't write yourself off yet. It's only in your head you feel left out or looked down on. Just do your best,
Do your best,
do everything you can.
everything you can.
Don't you worry what the bitter hearts are gonna say.
Just take some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright, alright. It just takes some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be alright.
Woohoo! If that doesn't get you going, nothing will. Welcome to WellSprings. My name is Loy Miller. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm honored and blessed to be your worship leader this morning. Each week when we gather, we light a chalice as a symbol of our spiritual heritage as Unitarian Universalists. But it's not just a symbol of the past. It's a symbol of the present, that divine spark that is present in each and every one of us. This morning, we've asked Majid and Mary to light our chalice, and after they do so, we'll say the words together on the screen. And together we say, we light this chalice to celebrate the path lit before us, the warmth of kindness that shines from within us, and the radiance of wisdom that is shared between us and never goes out. Thank you. Good morning. Our mission here at WellSprings is to be a community charged full with the charge of the soul. So I was able last weekend, at face value, mind you, to get 2 tickets to last week's Eagles playoff game. My husband Bob, being a lifelong Giants fan, did not want to go. If it went well, he wanted to cheer loudly. And if it went terrible, he didn't want to be there with 60,000 Eagles fans. It turned out it was very good he wasn't there. We moved here when my son was 2, and a couple years later, he came to Bob and said, "Dad, is it okay if I'm an Eagles fan?" Bob said, "Son, you can be any fan you want, any fan, except the Dallas Cowboys." So my son Dan, the Eagles fan, went with me to the game. And it was really something and really fascinating to be a small part of a gigantic organism all bent on a common purpose. It made me think how wonderful if we could do that some more about things a little more important than football. So this week, no matter who you're rooting for, let's come together in a common purpose and let it charge you full. And go Birds. This morning, I'd especially like to welcome any newcomers. If this is your first or second time with us, we're really glad you're here. I hope you'll fill out a connection card so you can learn more about us and start to introduce yourself too. If you're watching from home, there's a link to the online connection card in the description below the video. If you're here in person, you can fill out a connection card on your phone through our WellSprings app. See any of our greeters this morning to help you get connected. Now, if you'd like to interact with folks who are joining online on their phones, there is a live chat available on YouTube. To access it, you'll need a YouTube or Google account. Just sign in and then click the live chat button to say hello. And finally, you can always find more information about today's service, as well as upcoming events and news, through our WellSprings app, or by scanning the QR code that's available at the welcome table that are just outside the front doors. We have a few pieces of news we want to highlight this weekend, and for that, I'll turn it over to our Membership and Communications Coordinator, Jessica Heichel. Jessica?
Hi, WellSprings. My name is Jessica Heichel with 2 quick announcements for you this week. Up first, today, right after service, there's going to be an all ages connection event. And if you're here with us in Bell Hall, you're invited to stay for a fun craft that's going to be tied in with our Making a Life message series. So we hope you get a chance to stick around today. Second announcement is just a reminder that Reverend Lee is on vacation up until next week. So if you need to access pastoral care in her absence, there's a link in today's order of service about how you can do that. Nice short announcements today, everyone. Thanks, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jessica. At WellSprings, the foundation of all we do is rooted in the power of connection, of making space in our hearts and in our lives for each other. This is the part of the service where they honor that connection by greeting one another. If you're joining from home, take a moment now to share a greeting in the live chat, or maybe say hello in WellSprings Oasis, which is our private group on Facebook. For those here in Bell Hall, you might also consider posting in the Oasis group to connect with the community beyond these walls. And finally, a reminder for those of us in the room, please ask before hugging or approaching closely, as some of us are more comfortable with a fist or elbow bump these days. And if you prefer to keep your distance from others for any reason, just stay seated, and that'll be a cue to give you a friendly wave. With gratitude for all the ways we might connect, please greet one another now. All are invited to continue those conversations at the All Ages Craft Experience after the service, which will also have coffee. I invite you now into our time of generosity, which is an opportunity to express our gratitude for all the ways this spiritual community has impacted us all our lives. If you feel the value of our WellSprings community right now, we hope you'll share a gift to help sustain us. If you'd like to, you can use your phone to give from anywhere. Just text WSPRINGS, W Springs, to 73256. Our greeters will also be bringing the hats around for those of you who wish to donate by hand. You can also drop a check or a cash donation into the box near the front doors at the welcome table. Thank you for all the ways your gifts support WellSprings. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Having shared the energy between us and giving beyond us, let's take some time now to reground into the deep and soulful energy that's inside us. We do this by doing what is most simple and elemental in our lives. We take a breath, inhaling and exhaling without rush or hurry, breathing in and breathing out. There's nowhere else to go, nowhere else to be, and nothing else to do. So let's be here together now as we prepare for our time of mindful silence. We follow these words from Thich Nhat Hanh into our time of meditation. If we want to enter heaven on earth, we need only one conscious step and one conscious breath. Let us cultivate peace and experience presence in this quiet time together. Wherever it is that we are, whatever it is that we are doing, however it is that we are feeling, let us remember that peace and presence are always as close to us as is our own breath. May this be so for you this moment, may it be so for you this day, and may it be so for you in the days to come. May it be so for all of us. Now, I'd like to invite our congregation's children to join our staff and volunteers in the back of the room for their time of fellowship and Youth Spirit. Youth Spirit will be meeting in the dining hall, which is the building right to the right of the exit as you leave. And grown-ups, please don't forget to pick up your children after Youth Spirit when service is over. Now, I'll invite the band back on stage for our next song.
Was a Cape Town man, used to plow and sing. He loved his mule loved him. When the day got long, like it does about now, I'd hear him singing to his muley cow. Like this. Come on, you sweet old girl, I bet the whole damn world It's a mean old world, heavy in need. That big machine keeps on picking up speed. They were supping on tears, supping on wine. We all get to heaven in our own sweet time. So come on, you Asheville boys, turn up your old time noise. Kick till the dust comes up from the cracks in the floor. Singing hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind no more. So come on, you ragtime kings. Come on, you all and sing. Pick up that dusty old horn and give it a blow. Singing hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind. Hard times ain't gonna rule my mind no more. No more.
So,
Well, hey there. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Caroline Bright. My pronouns are she and her, and I have the immense privilege of being the ministerial intern at Mainline Unitarian Church, just down the road, and being a classmate of Beth's at Meadville Lombard Theological School. So I know Beth, guys. It's cool. I'm cool. We're fine. We're fine. As anyone who has ever read Laura Ingalls Wilder's books or watched the Little House on the Prairie TV series knows, for the first half of the 19th century in the newly formed United States, westward expansion was the name of the game. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803, coupled with the idea of manifest destiny, led many pioneers away from the New England and East Coast towns they'd been born in search of land and better prospects. One such couple were Universalists, Asa and Leffia Brown, who hailed from the best state in the Union then and now, Vermont. They left the rugged hills of the Green Mountains and went west to the wild and untamed wilderness of Michigan. Ooh. They named their first child Olympia, and they probably didn't realize at the time that she would help to change the world. After graduating from Antioch College in 1860, a mere 20 years after the first woman in America received her college degree, she set out to become a minister, even though at the time there were no theological schools that welcomed women. Laurie Carter Noble writes, "The Unitarian School of Meadville, Pennsylvania, replied to her request for admission, saying that the trustees thought it would be too great an experiment to admit a woman. Oberlin replied that she could be admitted but could not participate in public exercises. Finally, Ebenezer Fisher, president of the Universalist Divinity School at St. Lawrence University, offered her admission, but added that he did not think women were called to the ministry. But I leave that between you and the great head of the church. This, Olympia thought, was exactly where it should be left. And she said, but when I arrived, I was told that I had not been expected and that Mr. Fisher had said I would not come, as he had written so discouragingly to me. I suppose that his discouragement was my encouragement. Entering divinity school in 1861, she completed her course of study in just 2 years. She had to convince those opposed to women in the ministry that they could complete the required course of study as commendably as she had. Then she had to convince the reluctant ministers to ordain her and allow her to be called to the parish ministry. Despite considerable opposition, Brown prevailed in both goals. This determination characterized her throughout her long and fruitful life. Ultimately, she was ordained a Universalist minister, the first woman to achieve full ministerial standing recognized by a denomination. She also took an active role in the women's suffrage movement and was one of the few original suffragists who lived to vote in the 1920 presidential election. The defining theology of Universalism is universal salvation. Universalists believe that the God of love would not create a person knowing that person would be destined for eternal damnation. They concluded that all people must be destined for salvation. Universalists could trace their ideas around sin and salvation back to Origen, one of the earliest theologians in the first century of the church. Don't worry, that's as far as we're going into Origen. American Universalism was the result of the particular set of circumstances that resulted in a number of new styles of Christianity igniting in the fresh air of freedom in the newly formed USA. American Universalism developed from the influence of various Pietist and Anabaptist movements, including the Quakers, Moravians, Methodists, Lutherans, and others. While most of the best-known Universalists were New Englanders, like Hosea Ballou of New Hampshire, George de Benneville was incredibly important to Universalism in America. Though he was born in England, he was the son of exiled French aristocrats, and he immigrated to the United States with a wave of German immigrants who came to Philadelphia in the mid-1700s. He ultimately settled in Ole Valley, which is just 40 minutes north of here. It's right down the road. And he spent the rest of his life providing medical care, such as it was then, and sharing his Universalist beliefs. In an entry in the Dictionary of Unitarian and Universalist Biography, it says, because he believed all symbols of the same truth equally valid, he could converse across cultures and religions. He thought that taking religious truths literally rather than symbolically was the cause of many religious conflicts. De Benneville thought that if we listened to our inward spirits, we would know that behind every appearance of difference, there's an interdependent unity of all things. Godly love, de Benneville preached, finds its way in spite of, or even by virtue of, outward variations. That love must be based upon mutual respect for the differences in color, language, and worship, even as we accept with gratitude the differences that tend to unite the male and female of all species. It was the 1700s. We'll give them a pass. A little bit. Some of our most important core beliefs as Unitarian Universalists today are wrapped up in those words that de Benneville wrote over 200 years ago. Currently, the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, and many congregations have adopted an 8th principle. The 7 principles are actually part of the bylaws of the organization. UUs don't have dogma, but we do have bylaws. We feel very strongly about bylaws. And those are the foundation and the covenant of member congregations and communities with the UUA. The principles and purposes are in Article 2 of our bylaws, and in 2020, a study was commissioned to gain an understanding of the values and sources of inspiration shared amongst Unitarian Universalists. Relevant to those of us here, speaking of Philadelphia, in fact, one of the commission co-chairs just happens to be Reverend Cheryl M. Walker, who is the interim minister at Unitarian Society of Germantown. And another commission member is in fact a student at Haverford. So we're in, everybody. We've got an inside line on this. So they recently published their final report. They have proposed that in place of the principles, we should have 6 values with love at the center. There's a neat graphic, it's pretty cool, okay? So the shared values that they have identified and have determined to be inseparable from one another are interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. I can't help but notice many of those words are already on your order of service here at WellSprings this morning. Now, I don't know what's going to happen at this year's General Assembly with this report, but as someone who is a big fan of our principles, I have to say that these values do resonate as a simplified way of articulating what the foundation and center of Unitarian Universalism is. The report expands on each value. On pluralism, they articulate, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. To me, that sounds a whole lot like George de Benneville's 200-year-old statement that love must be based upon mutual respect for differences in color, language, and worship. So, okay, I buy it. Love is at the center of who we are. Good, I'm on board, all right. But as anyone who has ever been in a long-term relationship knows, love alone isn't enough to make a relationship work. Love and the values that support it have to be cultivated and encouraged intentionally. But how does that happen? How do people enter into and then maintain relationships? Oh, it's simple. Communication, communication, communication. Ugh. It can feel like such a cliche, right? Successful relationships require communication. We know this. Just look at the self-help section on Amazon or at your local bookstore and you will see books on communication, love languages, all of these different ways of communicating to improve our relationships. Sometimes cliches are true, right? And I don't just mean romantic relationships, though, or even just bonds between individuals, one-on-one relationships with family or friends. I mean every relationship that involves human beings. From the micro level to the macro, it's all about communication. On the micro level, when my 9-month-old, who is down in the nursery, cries, he's communicating that something is wrong. On the macro level, if we zoom out as far as we can, as we experience increased extreme weather events, we can see nature or the environment is communicating that something is wrong. Too often, when another person does something or says something, we think we understand what they're trying to communicate, only to later realize that we had completely misinterpreted something. One example of this from my own life that I think about a lot is a few years ago when I was working as a flight attendant for a major US airline. I was the lead flight attendant on this particular flight, and it had been a very hectic day. We'd already had all kinds of wild and exciting things happen. We finally took off, we're on this flight, we get up in the air, and the Wi-Fi is not working, which is a drag because I don't know if you've ever been a passenger on an airplane, but the Wi-Fi is what keeps people quiet. You watch your movies or your TV shows or you work on your emails, and then you don't ring your call bell, and it is better for everyone. But on this particular flight, we're going along, right, and all of a sudden a call bell starts. We have a medical emergency. We have somebody who's feeling faint. Okay, we're gonna help her. Another call bell goes off. It's another medical emergency. Okay, now I'm the lead flight attendant, so I'm up by the cockpit. I'm in charge of all of the flight attendants on this plane. I'm coordinating all of these things. I'm communicating with the captain, going back and forth like, oh my gosh, how many more things can happen on this flight? And there's this guy up in the first class cabin who asks me, Miss, do you know when the Wi-Fi is going to be working? And I was like, sir, I don't, but I'll look into it and I'll let you know if we have any updates. And as I'm running back and forth, bringing ginger ale to this one person who feels faint, orange juice to this other, another call bell goes off, and this other person wants to order a Coke, even though we've made an announcement if any medical professionals could come help us. No, this other person wants their soda, right? And I'm going back up, and I'm bringing this medical kit to a doctor in first class so that he can open it with physician authority, right? Things are getting real. And this guy up in first class, again, goes, "Excuse me, miss, do you know when the Wi-Fi will be working?" And I'm thinking to myself, you have got to be kidding me. I was thinking stronger language that I will not now say because this is being recorded. But, so we're going back and forth, right? I'm running back and forth. I'm like, okay, all right, we're calm. He calls me over again. I'm thinking to myself, oh, good Lord. And he says, "I just wanted to apologize. I'm so sorry. I know this is obnoxious that I keep asking about the Wi-Fi. But I'm asking because I'm on this plane, because my son is being airlifted to the children's hospital. And I'm trying to get there and land in time to meet him and his mom there." Well, I think we know what I was in that moment. You know what happens when you assume, right? Here I was assuming that this guy was just some rude businessman, selfishly oblivious to the needs of other people, but in fact, I was the one being oblivious to the unspoken needs of someone who I needed to help. Good news is we landed, the EMTs came on the plane. I actually got special permission from the pilot to have this guy go off first, and it was fine, it all worked out. I sometimes wonder what happened with that family that day. I won't know, I'll never know. But so many of us will never have any idea about these interactions that were so small for one person communicating, but so important for another. So my husband and I have a lot in common. We are both white, nerdy, graduate school educated, East Coast Americans. You'd think, or at least I'd think, that we would understand each other. Yeah, he actually has a degree in linguistics from Penn. Yeah, so surely, communication, right? No. Alas, I'm a Vermonter who grew up overseas, and he is a Philadelphian who grew up in Lawndale, okay? We've been together for 5 years, and still, on a regular basis, one of us will use a particular word, and the other one will say, "Wait, what?" Apparently, some people here call a slide a sliding board. What are you people doing? I don't know. I love Philly, it's great. But confusing, because you use words and communicate in strange ways in this place. So I've learned that for all we have in common, my husband and I come from fundamentally different cultures. When I started at Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of the first things that we did as newly minted seminary students was to take an assessment called the Intercultural Development Inventory. The IDI assesses intercultural competence, right? That capability to shift cultural perspective and appropriately adapt behavior to cultural differences and commonalities. The test assesses where you fall on an intercultural development continuum. Your placement can range from denial, which consists of a disinterest in other cultures and a more active avoidance of cultural differences. Individuals with a denial orientation often do not see differences in perceptions or behavior as cultural. A denial orientation is characteristic of individuals who have limited experience with other cultural groups and therefore tend to operate with broad stereotypes and general relations about the cultural other. Okay. Next comes polarization, where you can see differences, but you are judgmental about them. Then minimization, which is where you de-emphasize difference. Okay. Acceptance is where you can deeply characterize differences. And finally, adaptation, which enables deep cultural bridging across diverse communities, etc. Now, I grew up in 3 different countries. I am a dual citizen. Intercultural communication, I've got this. I was like, this is great. I know exactly where I'm gonna fall on this continuum. So I took this assessment. I was kind of right, but not really. It turned out that most of the time, particularly when I'm here in the US versus in another country, I'm not in adaptation. I'm in minimization. That is my go-to. Sure, I have acceptance and adaptation skills, but my mindset is more focused on minimizing differences in order to avoid conflict. While there's nothing wrong with finding common ground to create harmony in the short term, minimizing and ignoring differences can cause a lot of unintended harm. In the Jones and Oken framework for understanding the culture that exists in white supremacy, Team Oken writes, "My intention is to say that white supremacy culture trains us to internalize attitudes and behaviors that do not serve any of us." One characteristic of that harms all of us is the fear of open conflict. An example of that could be an emphasis or insistence on being polite, setting the rules for how ideas or information or differences of opinion need to be shared in order to be heard. The antidote to that behavior, that fear of open conflict, the antidote can be to seek connection and to choose love over fear, to choose love over that fear of open conflict. And then with that connection in place, we can take risks and we can learn from the mistakes that we will inevitably make. But how do we connect, right? How do we choose love over fear? We've got to learn how to communicate. We have to cultivate a culture of communication, one that builds on and builds into trust within community. It's no coincidence that communication and community share the same Latin root word, communis, which means common, or, are you ready for it, universal. Yep, universal, like that idea of salvation promoted by Olympia Brown and George de Benneville. Universal, like Unitarian Universalists. Our UU congregations and communities should be places where we don't have to minimize our differences, where we don't need to shrink ourselves or play small in order to be in community with one another, in order to create a beloved community together. When cultural differences or new ideas arise, we can and must embrace them by being curious, not judgmental. Even when it makes us uncomfortable, and even when we don't like it. We aren't going to get it right every time, but we must absolutely try again and again and again. As Rumi wrote, and as many UUs sing, "Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, though you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Because love is at the heart of who we are, individually and collectively. Love is at the heart of the goal, process, and the lived experience of beloved community. So let us look to our history to see where our values can take us in the future. And let us learn how to better communicate, taking risks and learning from our mistakes. But most of all, let us do all of this in love. So now I hope you'll join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit, God of many names, thank you for this time together today. Thank you for the love that centers our faith and flows in and through all of us. Help us to live into the everyday miracle of beloved community. Help us to live up to our highest aspirations, and help us to see the holy everywhere. Amen, and may it be so.
Please rise, whether in body or in spirit, and join us on our last song.
Can we just say thank you to Sam today?
Yes.
It's great to have a bassist up here, have some new faces. And I need a sign to let me know you're here. All of these lines are being crossed over the atmosphere. And I need to know that things are gonna look up, 'cause I feel us drowning in a sea spilled from a cup. when there is no place safe and no safe place to put my head, when you can feel the world shake from the words that are said, and I'm calling all angels, and I'm calling all you angels. I won't give up if you don't give up. I won't give up if you don't give up. I won't give up if you don't give up. And I won't give up if you don't give up. And I need a sign to let me know you're here, 'cause my TV set just keeps it all from being clear. And I want a reason for the way things have to be. And I need a hand to help build up some kind of hope inside of me. And I'm calling all angels. And I'm calling all you angels. When children have to play inside so they don't disappear, well, private lives over marriage lies, 'cause we don't talk for years. And football teams are kissing queens and losing sight of having dreams. In a world where what we want is only what we want until it's ours. And I'm calling all angels. And I'm calling all you angels. And I'm calling all angels. I won't give up if you don't give up. Calling all you angels. I won't give up if you don't give up. Calling all you angels. I won't give up if you don't give up. Calling all you angels. I won't give up if you don't give up. Calling all you angels. You don't give up. Calling all you angels.
May you know that you are blessed and lucky. May you know that you are touched by something that will grow and bloom. May you see the signs and know their meaning. May you hear the signs and know they're speaking to you. May you be blessed and know that it was meant to be. Amen. Amen.